What if I told you that the 7.5cm KwK-42 in War Thunder could actually be worse than it appears?
A few inches later.
Today, we're going to see whether Gaijin modeled this gun in a historically accurate way, or if an important detail was overlooked. Let's begin with the weapon's designation. Here Gaijin did an excellent job. The naming is historically correct: PaK-42 on tank destroyers and KwK-42 on turret-mounted vehicles. Both designations accurately reflect real-world usage. Now let's move on to the gun's offensive performance. In most aspects, the KwK-42 is modeled correctly. The reload rate matches historical data. Shell weights are accurate, muzzle velocity is correct, and both explosive filler and TNT equivalent are properly represented. At first glance, the gun appears nearly flawless. However, one specific aspect stands out as inaccurate: ballistic behavior. Because most of the Panther's historic components relied on sloped armor, this analysis focused exclusively on penetrations at a 30-degree impact angle, which better represents real combat conditions than flat armor tests. Let's start with the APCBC round. When compared to historical data, this shell consistently overperforms in-game. The discrepancy begins at roughly 3.6% at 100 meters, and steadily increases with distance, exceeding 10% by 2000 meters. This indicates that the shell retains penetration over distance better than it should, pointing to inaccurate ballistic modeling. Now moving on to the APCR round. Here the opposite behavior appears. Compared to historical values, the APCR underperforms significantly at short and medium ranges. Penetration is approximately 14% lower at 100 meters and remains around 30% lower at 500 meters. While this gap narrows with distance and becomes nearly negligible by 2000 meters, the early penetration loss is far steeper than historical data suggests. So, why does these discrepancies exist? Most of them originate from the 2019 update that changed how War Thunder calculates shell performance. Prior to this update, many projectiles relied on documented ballistic tables. Afterward, Gaijin adopted its own penetration formula, placing greater emphasis on the game balance rather than strict historical accuracy. Despite these issues, the KwK-42 remains one of the most balanced guns analyzed in the series. It shows minimal community complaints, limited conflicting data, and overall performance that stays relatively close to historical expectation compared to other weapons in War Thunder.